What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I have a special type of show for you today. I've done shows like this before, where I used to do a show where I look at the top 5 fights for the upcoming month, and I've done a few shows where we have kind of a look ahead at the next while. And I'm kind of doing a version of both of those, kind of amalgamating maybe those two shows for the month of November, because it's a very, very interesting month. I was going to do the 5 fights, but I literally couldn't whittle it down to 5. I've almost whittled it down to 5 events, but not even that here, because I just want to have a chat about where we are at mixed martial arts at the moment, but also mostly those fights, because I said this. I think I did it like around, the numbers may be wrong, but like UFC maybe 300, 301, 302 or something like that myself. I think I'd Ian O'Neill on to talk about that run and how MMA nowadays is more cyclical maybe than it ever was in terms of like the top fights. There's some people who might only tune in for their biggest of fights, but even for the people probably watching this and myself and others, we're tuning in every week. But we know when there's a big run of fights coming up. We know when something special is on the way, and I think we get kind of very, very excited for that. Now, the month of November is a funny one, because as if big hairs look at my mouth, because I feel like the first card I want to talk about is obviously the big one, the big UFC 3-on-9 card, and we'll get to that in a second. But I don't know, are people as excited about that card as I am? But we'll get to that in a second. But I am, and then we have the big PFL cards. So those are the two big cards of the month, and we'll get to those. But I just wonder sometimes, right, because of that cyclical nature of mixed martial arts that you have it at the moment, I just wonder, is it even more picky than it once was? Like I feel like there's two brands of fans. The ones I mentioned earlier, right? And there can be overlap, but people who will just watch anything and everything and enjoy everything in the exact same way. And then there's people, well, okay, maybe there's 3. There's people who will pick and choose and maybe watch only the best of the best. And then there's some people like myself, and I'm sure, again, a lot of people here, will watch everything, but we know when to get pumped for certain fights, or we know when to get excited for them. And when you see cards like those two I mentioned, but also, the Yan Figueiredo fight, which is upcoming, which until I started going through this, I hadn't even heard it was happening. I'm like, oh God, that's a fight. That's a very, very interesting fight. We'll get to that as well, obviously, here as we go through it. But I think by the nature of the sport and where we have it at the moment, if the fans who love everything, the exact same, they look at, and this is coming out just after UFC Edmonton, but they look at UFC Edmonton the same as they look at UFC 309, the same as they look at UFC 310, the same as they look at the Apex card between Magny and who Pratt is, or whoever he's fucking fighting, who no one cares about. There is a section of fans who look at all of those fights the exact same. And again, that's fine. But today maybe we'll look at the fans who don't, right? The people like myself, the people like, as I said, a lot of people listening to this, who want to pick out the best of the best and enjoy it, while also not being too picky at the same time, right? Because if you're too picky, you'll give out about Jones and Miocic. I know there's reasons to give out about the whole Aspinall thing, and there's a big Aspinall fan base and everything like that. But even the PFL finale, some people will give out about it, right? And you can understand sometimes, and I think they've actually, it's not on pay-per-view anymore, and I will have a full breakdown of that card now, but we're going to talk about it today as well. I think at times, right, sometimes we can be too picky, right? Sometimes we'll only tune in if it not only has to be a Jon Jones fight, it has to be Jon Jones versus the specific opponent. Like, can't just be a good Alex Pereira fight, it has to be a great Alex Pereira fight, so we can be too picky as well sometimes. Now, it's okay to want the best of the best, absolutely, but in terms of we already have it, am I going to tune in, or am I going to enjoy it, or am I going to talk positively or negatively about it? I think, and I'm no I'm no saint here now, and there might be a slight bit of me talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but you get what I mean, And let's get to that 309 card, because I think that is all of this argument, I think, in one, right? Because So Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, the main event, and there's some other fights on as well. I want to mention a couple of them in a second. It is a fight that, for, I don't know, the numbers might be slightly off, right? But how long? How long have I been watching MMA? A long time, right? But even longer than I've been watching MMA, or maybe that around that time. So, but we go at least 10 years, maybe a little bit longer. If you had told people that Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic were fighting for the UFC heavyweight title for most of the last 10 years, I would say even up until the last year, maybe, I think people would be like, oh, yes, absolutely, yes, this is a dream fight. This is one of the best fights we could ever have hoped for. This was literally like, if you go back to, and it's not even that far away, like maybe 2080, 90, 20, even you know, around then. When was Stipe champion? I mean, let me just quickly check here on the beautiful website of Sherdog.com when Stipe was champion. So he lost his belt in 2021, right? 2021. So, and that's not that long ago. Okay, so 3 years ago. If you had said 3 years ago, Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic were going to fight, you know, Francis Ngannou got injured, people would have been biting your hand off. Now, Stipe's lost one fight since then. Okay, he hasn't fought in 3 years. Grand, I understand all that part of it. But, like, for the, and I sense, and I know that I think the vast majority of people don't agree with me here, right? But I don't care, right? That's fine. I'm just telling you my argument. You can completely disagree with me. I'd like to think I've built up enough respect that people would listen to me. Tell me, you know, the comment section below, tell me who I'm wrong, tell me your argument. There's no problem there, and I understand other people's arguments. But I think the level of disrespect that has been garnered upon Stipe Miocic over the next while is like utterly disgraceful. Like, I really do think it is. Like, again, he's lost one fight in a row. Oh, okay, he's older and everything like that, but Jon Jones is older. Jon Jones has only fought for 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever at heavyweight. He didn't look in amazing shape coming in there. I think we all realised after that fight that's, and you know, again, it'd be brave after the battle, but like Silgan didn't look great on the ground there, did he? He also didn't look great on the ground against Francis. So, you know, and as good and all as Francis is, he's not exactly Daniel Cormier or GSP or Habib or anything like that now, is he? You know, so I think this fight is a better fight than people are giving it credit for, right? How many, you know, Stipe's 42 right now. Okay, he only just turned 42. How many older heavyweights have we seen doing well, right? I've an interview with a very interesting one coming up next week, so tune in for that. But how many have we seen? Well, like, this isn't, people are treating this like Tony Ferguson is coming back to fight, you know, Charles Oliveira or something, or Islam Makhachev. People are treating this like BJ Penn is fighting, you know, Conor McGregor. This is not what's happening here. Just absolutely not. Now, who will win? Look, I'm picking Jon Jones. Most people probably pick Jon Jones. But like most people would have picked Jon Jones 6 or 7 years ago too, probably. So, I think we need to just calm down a little bit on that, right? And again, I'm not the most positive person in the world, don't get me wrong. And I'm not the most positive person on fights either, but I feel like it's one of those fights, like all fights are. When we get there, when it's 5 minutes to 7 in the morning, or whatever it is for me, and the fight's about to start, we'll all be excited about it and be saying for, you know, the people in America watching at 10 o'clock or whatever it is, right? But now that we're, how many days away from it? Let me just look here. It is, I'm a little less than 2 weeks. So by the time you watch this, it's probably only about 10 days out from this card, right? Now is the time to, like, forget about the rest of it. Right? Aspinall's only 10 more days to wait, right? Forget about your boy Tommy, you know, the the biggest baby face of all time. He'll be the number one contender in 10 days' time. He is the interim champion already. He's earned the money from the interim champion. You know, he had these big fights and all. Right, he's there now. It's finished. The Tommy stuff is over. Let's get excited by this. Let's enjoy this card. Let's get into it. Let's realize we have Stipe Miocic versus Jon Jones, and let's enjoy it. right? And I might sound, like I'm a UFC shill or something here now. And I think, again, if people have listened to my podcasts and read my tweets and read articles and stuff I've done down through the years, I think a lot of people would know that that's not the case, right? Absolutely. But, right, I have a lot of respect for Stipe Miocic inside the cage, outside the cage. I have a lot of respect for Jon Jones inside the cage anyway. And I won't be dragged in. I won't be dragged into it. I won't. I refuse. This is a fight I want to see. I'm happy to see it. And do you know what? Whoever wins, I'll be happy to see him fight Tom Aspinall. Or do you know what? If they want to retire, I'll be happy to see that too. So let's enjoy this fight. And do you know what? Right? Just quickly, and we'll speak a lot about this, and I know my guys Sheehan and Duffy will do their breakdown of it as well next week. Very much looking forward to seeing that, as I'm sure everyone watching this is as well. But like, for years we always talked about what style will hurt Jon Jones, and now let's remember as well, the judging criteria has changed over the last few years, and Jon Jones hasn't had that many fights, right? And a lot of those fights which he did have were very, very close, right? It's I think a lot of people are like, Stipe Miocic is over the hill and all of this, but what about Dominic Reyes? What about Dominic Reyes? What about that fight? What about Thiago Santos? A lot of people thought Dominic Reyes won that fight. Thiago Santos, a lot of people thought he won that fight. One of them split decision, one of them went to decision as well. Jon Jones as well has had one fight since the pandemic, since 2020 and 2023. It's not like Jon Jones is really active and Stipe isn't. It's not like Jon Jones is a young gun eater anymore. He's 37 years of age as well. Come on, guys. Come on. But anyway, can Stipe Miocic, okay, what do we always say about Jon Jones? He'll take him to go up to heavyweight. He'll take the bigger guy. We've often talked about it at heavyweight. What's the right weight? Should it be 265? Should it be a lower weighter guy coming up? I think Stipe Miocic is your genuine heavyweight. He is the right weight, right size, and all of that. Jon Jones up the heavyweight is probably the right size, and I'm sure he'll get the right weight and all. But is his physique the right one for heavyweight? It's hard to say it is, considering it was definitely the right one for light heavyweight, right? Does that make sense? I think it probably should, right? So we've seen him again for 2 minutes and 4 seconds of a fight at heavyweight. Didn't come into that looking in the most unbelievable shape, and now he does look in unbelievable shape. Will that play a factor? Will it be a little bit different? And how is he actually going to look on fight night? Because he looked different. He looked in different shape coming into the last fight than he was at the weigh-ins and on fight night as well. So I think there's a lot to discuss around that fight, and the biggest part of it, as I was kind of talking about there, like Jones at heavyweight with a guy like Stipe Miocic, who is big and tall and has, a good reach. Okay, Jones probably has a longer reach as well, but Stipe is well used to fighting big, tall guys. Stipe has worked to the body like he did against Cormier, just destroyed him. His power. He's a good wrestler offensively and defensively. Like, Stipe is a top fighter. And okay, he got caught by Francis Ngannou and knocked out, right? He got caught by DC and got knocked out. He beat DC twice as well. Let's remember. Let's not forget that, And he's only lost to her. That was in 2014 to Junior Dos Santos, who he beat afterwards. It's Stipe Miocic is the greatest heavyweight of all time. This is the greatest light heavyweight of all time. God almighty, if we can't put a couple of things to the side and enjoy this, I don't know what we can. But anyway, we could stick on that fight all night, but let's move on to a couple of other fights. Two other fights I want to touch on UFC 309. The co-main event, Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. This is a fight that made very little sense to me. Okay, look, Michael Chandler's waited around for a long time for Conor McGregor. Should he have waited a little bit longer? Is a question. Look, the answer to that can be yes or no. But was this the fight to take? Sometimes, like, if you put on your conspiracy theory hat, you'd be like, well, maybe Michael Chandler, after getting knocked out again by Charles Oliveira, would actually be a better opponent from Conor McGregor than, a fresh Michael Chandler who hasn't been knocked out in a good while. Type of thing. Now, I don't necessarily think that's the case, right? But maybe it turns out to be the way it happens. I just think it's a very odd fight. Like, I understand what it is, right? Is a keep busy fight for both of them. And both of them are kind of in a place where they need to be kept busy because they don't really have much on else at the moment. You know, obviously Oliveira is not the number one contender. You know, Islam and Saryukin are going to be fighting coming up, and then Ramadan is obviously there as well. So if Oliveira chose to wait, he'd be out for a very, very, very long time. And, you know, we saw this fight once, and it ended in devastating fashion. Like, who is closer to their peak now as compared to then? You know, you'd say Oliveira. You'd probably say both, or maybe, you know, the other side of it, but Oliveira closer than Chandler, considering he kind of had an Indian summer to his career in somewhat, you know, and Chandler, obviously, you know, you would think now he's been around for a very, very long time. Maybe he's coming towards the end of it, although I don't think he's there yet either. And, like, it's hard to say that Chandler has, you know, like, I'll give you an example. Bilal Muhammad and Vicente Luque. Luque knocked him out first. By the second time they fought, like, they had gone from here to here to here to here. You know, Bilal had taken over him. Obviously not the case here. So very hard to see this not ending similarly to the first one. The other fight I wanted to touch on is Bo Nickal and Paul Craig. Such an interesting fight. I think Bo Nickal, right? So he's 6-0 and he's fought some, you know, guys who are okay. He's fighting Paul Craig here, and I think the two things you would say when you're fighting Paul Craig is it's a very winnable fight and it's a very losable fight. You know, Bo Nickal will never have been near anyone like Paul Craig, who's an odd type of guy. I remember watching Paul Craig in the early days of his career. You know, my my colleague at the time, Andrew McGann, famously slated Paul Craig on a podcast, and he did it, submitted his teammate like the week after, which made me like Paul Craig forever, to be honest. But that's the type of guy he is, you know. As I cough myself to them. Younger in his career, you know, he was the type of guy, even on the regional scene, who thought, you know, will he go to the next level? Will it be some other, you know, likes of Carl Moore and other around there? I know Carl has obviously gone very, very far and fought for the Bellator title and all, but, you know, Paul has, I think, exceeded expectations all around the place, and because he can win fights he's not supposed to win. Now, he's not supposed to win this fight, absolutely not. And I think that's the perfect fight for Bo Nickal at the moment. Absolutely perfect. I think this is great matchmaking. You know, Bo is talking about fighting Paul and fighting one more and another one, and then, you know, maybe number one contender fighting in the title type of thing, which is absolutely perfect if you're a guy like Bo. I think what Bo Nickal needs over the next while is fights. You know, you're 6-0. You know, you've been in the UFC now. Let me just check here now. How long has Bo been in the UFC? It's been a minute. Like, it feels like it's been a longer time than this. He fought in Dana White Contender Series in 2022. March 2023, he made his UFC debut. Had 2 fights in 2023 and 1 in 2024. Like, Bo Nickal should be fighting more than that. I know maybe there's some injuries or whatever maybe have happened in it, but, you know, he's a guy who's gone in there and taken lads out and not getting touched. He should be fighting 4 or 5 times a year, should Bo Nickal. Like, I think that would be the way to move him forward. And he hasn't done that. And I think that's where he needs to go. Right? And the other, just one more guy I wanted to mention on this card, because and this is me speaking negatively about myself here, but there was a fight announced, and the fight's actually not happening, I think, but there's another fight happening now. Mauricio Ruffy. It was announced, and I saw a lot of people go, oh yes, Ruffy's on this card, Ruffy. I'm like, who is Ruffy? Who? And I know he's out of the Fighting Nerds and Carvalho and that gym and all. I'm like, I'm sure I probably have seen him, but my memory is terrible, first of all, but I really haven't partaken in the Ruffy hype so far. He's only had 1 UFC fight I'm seeing against Jamie Malarkey. But do you know what? I'm looking forward to getting into the Ruffy hype. There's a lot of people talking about him. Everyone is building him up, so looking forward to seeing how Ruffy goes in there. Right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the PFL finale. Very, very interesting as well what they have done. They've put the PFL finale with the PFL MENA finale. Now, I'll have previews for both of them, obviously. But this card is probably the most underrated, underappreciated big card of the year. Because I would say every fight is ultra competitive. Like, and I'm talking about the PFL global card here now for a second. We'll do more research and we'll talk about more about the PFL MENA further down the line. There is some fun guys on it. You know, Ali Taleb. I always love seeing Ali Taleb. You know, Omar Al Farawi put in a real big underdog display last time out, and Mohsen Mohammed Shafi This guy is a real fun fighter as well. But the fights, Loknan against Hizriev, Santos against Dicheva, Popov against Goltsov, Rabadanov against Primus, Kasanganay against Yashimordov, and Umalatov versus Musayev. Really good, right? All of those fighters, if I'm not mistaken, it's 3-0, isn't it? 3 fights. All of them are 3-0 this year in the PFL. Which, we've been talking about the PFL and people give out about the way the fights happen and all of that. But it shows, the cream rise to the top. The cream really have this year especially risen to the top. And these fights are actually special. They really are. I don't think, maybe if people haven't tuned in this year or paid attention or know a lot about these fighters, Brendan Loughnane going to be a 2-time champion. Hizriev undefeated at 17-0. This guy looks an absolute beast. You're kind of thinking at this level, very few people will beat Loughnane. Very few people will beat Hizriev. And you're kind of thinking, imagine if this division got filled out with, some Bellator fighters, maybe others, and next year and the year after, how good this is going to be. But this already shows how good it is right now. Right? I'm gonna be charged with giving a pick in this fight upcoming, and I don't know which way I'm gonna go. It's crazy. Then Santos against Dicheva. I've repeated this so many times this year. I'm probably gonna repeat it 2 or 3 more times before this event comes up. But this women's flyweight division this year has been the best ever tournament in PFL anyway for the women, because it's always been a 1-horse race. Even it didn't turn out that way once when Pacheco won, but coming into that season, Kayla. The year before that, Kayla. And then Kayla went away, and then it was Pacheco. So it was a 1-horse race all the time. And only once it didn't turn out that way because Pacheco caused the upset. But this year, we had all of those great fighters. We had Carmouche, we had Santos, we had Dicheva, Velasquez, and the rest that were in there. Some really good fighters this year. And what are we left with? Talia Santos against Dakota Dicheva. Santos was right in there in a title fight with Shevchenko and got very good. Did she get to a split decision? I think she might have. Very close anyway. She did get to a split decision. And she's fighting Dakota Dicheva, 13-0, probably the best female prospect in the world that we've seen, since Kayla Harrison. And Kayla's different because obviously she came from the Olympics, but since who? It's hard to think. It's hard to think. You could, Amanda Nunes wasn't the prospect coming through. It's, since probably Tatiana Suarez is probably the one. And, Dicheva has just destroyed everyone along the way and looked amazing. But this is the big test for her. Can she hang at this stage of her career? I spoke to the Dakota Dicheva. Let me see how long ago this was. This was the European finale, December 2023. December. So this is 11 months ago, right? And I asked her, she won that night, obviously. I asked her, how far are you away from being the best female fighter in the world? And she was like, no, I'm really far away. I'm not close to that. 11 months later, she's fighting Talia Santos for the belt. That is crazy. And you know what? She might win. Unbelievable. Goltsov and Popov in the heavyweight. Again, the winner of this mightn't just be getting $1 million. They might be getting Francis Ngannou, because, we never know. You never know what's going to happen, but what's Francis going to do next? I think especially, Popov has looked so good this year that I think a lot of people think, 19-1, his heavy wrestling style, he can be Francis. Big guy too. Goltsov has taken a lot of guys down. I think for Goltsov, it's his time. He's going to have to win it sometime, A very interesting fight. Primus and Rabadanov. Rabadanov has looked so good this year. But I said from the very start that Primus is the guy who's built for this. Very fun fight. A Kasanganay Yashimordov again. Yashimordov has had a great year. He's looked so good. And Kasanganay is just always there, always consistent, always improving. And then Musayev versus Umalatov is probably one of the greatest fights you'll ever see, has ever been seen outside of the UFC. In terms of quality, 17-1 versus 17-0. Musayev destroyed, the one champion coming over. Umalatov has looked unbelievable. I haven't a clue who's going to win that. I'll probably pick Musayev because he looks so dominant in recent fights. But by God, that is an unbelievable fight. This card is unreal. Really good. Really good. So those are the two big ones. But let's touch on some of the other ones, and we'll run through these. So November 9th, and I'm recording this obviously after the Cage Warriors Rome card and the UFC Edmonton card. Just, because we're kind of moving in rather than the very start. But so the November 9th card in the Apex, not an amazing card. Magny against Prates. Prates is a fun, exciting guy. I like him. And Magny will probably allow it to be an exciting fight. Other than that, Rene de Ridder's making his debut. I've covered obviously a lot of one championship here against Gerald Marshall. Like, what a card to put Rene de Ridder on. What a card to put him on. I think the barn burner that night, fight at night, will probably be Nicolas Dalby against Zaleski dos Santos. And I have a bit of a soft spot for Matthew Schimmelsberger. He's fighting Charles Redecke, which I think should be good. But yeah, it's a fight with not a lot of high quality, but I think there could be a few fun fights. So Cody Garbrandt, the former champion, against Miles John as well. That's a very, very interesting fight. I'm hopping in between and going to different cards here now for a few seconds, but one that really stands out to me is Petr Yan versus Davidson Figueiredo going down. This is over in Macau on November 25th. This is the type of fight again. I think I don't know. I don't know. Are we dreaming of it? I don't know necessarily we dreaming of it, but when it's put in front of you, you're thinking, oh my God, that's a fun fight. Like Figueiredo's fought really differently over the last few years, in that he was a berserker. And then, that one title fight against Moreno where it all went against him, and he's kind of become more refined, maybe more of a hitter. And then now he's fighting Yan, who, like, if you become more refined, and you fight a refined fight against a guy like Yan, who is probably one of the most refined strikers and, all around the mixed martial artists, you might have issues there. So does Figueiredo go back? And I said this for his last fight as well, and he didn't, and he still won. But does he kind of revert to type and go back to that? I'd be very, very interested to kind of see if that does end up happening. So I'm really looking forward to that fight. Jan Jan against Tabitha Ricci as well as on that. Could possibly have title implications with a couple of wins there for either of those. Olberg as well, not too far away from title. He's fighting Volkan Ozdemir, and obviously a lot of the but this being over in China, there's a lot of the Chinese fighters, a lot of Asian fighters on this as well. Lonnie Kavanagh as well is on it, making his debut. Haven't fought in Cage Warriors an awful lot. This lad is an absolute beast at flyweight. So wait until you see that. It's very, very fun. Couple of the other cards in that are happening this month, kind of big cards. One championship have a really good card. 169 Rug is fighting Malyaka. That's a very, very fun fight. Adriana Moraes is back as well, and Kedra Tolo's fighting in MMA. Buchecha is on that card as well. Then you have KSW 100, which, my guy Sean Denny, and I don't know if hopefully I'll be able to, with all the schedule, to be able to do a preview for this, but this is going on November 16th. Main event, Kaladov against Bartosinski. Like, what a fight that is. And then 3 title fights. A heavyweight fight between Phil DeFries and Dario Stosic. Rafael Hirtak for the light heavyweight belt against Maric Wojciech. And then Robert Ruchala, who's been so good over the last while, against Kasper Formia. So very, very interesting stuff there. Malis Flaminas is also on that card. Damian Janakovsky is also on that card. Is also like a really, really fun card there for KSW. Invicta card as well. Invicta 168. That's gone down. Sorry, Invicta 58. That's gone down November 6th. Emily Ducote is on that. Deanna Bennett's on the card as well. And that card is kind of still getting full out. Shani Young is on it, who's been around for a very, very, very long time. So great to see Invicta back, and Invicta doing good things as well. So looking forward to that. There's a big Oktagon card on. Obviously, the Oktagon card is coming up. I will have a preview for it. Pushinger and Nafuka. So tune into that to see all that. But that's a very interesting fight in the main event. Oktagon, right? They've signed Zalal Zamagulov as well. He's fighting Aaron Abbey. Very interesting. Jack Maguire, another Irish prospect, coming through. So that's an interesting card. And then we have a couple of Cage Warriors cards. Cage Warriors 180 on November 15th and 181 on November 23rd. There's a lot of title fights coming up in Cage Warriors. So on the first card, the bantamweight title, Liam Gittins is obviously defending his title. And then the light heavyweight title, James Webb, is going to be fighting Andy Clampin on 181. There's 3 title fights on that. Harry Hardwick for the featherweight title against Queenie Lopez. Shaj Hackett's fighting Nixel Blonde, and the bantamweight title fight, Kennedy Freeman, who is an absolute beast. The daughter of Ian Freeman is fighting for the belt on that as well. My guy James Power as well is on that card. So it's a really good into the year for cage warriors. An absolute banger as well on the November 15 card. Adam Cullen against Tobias Harilla. Such a great fight. Paddy McCurry, after his stint in the Ultimate Fighters back, he's fighting Ty Palmer. Really, really, really interesting. Nick Bagley had a big win last time out. He's fighting again. Adam Darby's fighting. Such a great card. And that's about that. But one thing I wanted to mention towards the end, I don't like mentioning this myself, but the one I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. You know, just for a second, I don't like talking about it, right? But I'll talk about it because Jake Paul has been threatening to fight MMA for a long time, right? And he had another boxing match lined up. He has Mike Tyson lined up. And it feels like this is the one he's been lining up for a very, very long time, you know? And what's going to be happening after that? Is there a bit of a void? He's been talking about training and all. You know, obviously PFL are going to be putting their cards forward for next year. You know, I'm sure that they'll want to start off with a big bang at the start of next year. Or will it be like the thing of, like, I'm going to start now from the 1st of January and I'm going to fight for PFL in the Super Fight Series? You know, when was it on? It was on a couple of weeks ago, obviously next October or whatever it might be. Interested to see that. I'm kind of interested to see how badly he beats Mike Tyson and how bad Mike Tyson looks. And I've never really been interested in any of these fights before, but I think this one is so disgraceful and so rotten that I want to see how rotten it is almost, because I have no interest in it other than that. So it's look, we can forget that last bit, but it's a very, very interesting month. I think it's probably a quieter December than we usually have, you know, because kind of the PFL and Bellator and all that are maybe kind of slowing down towards the end of the year now. I think they'll probably have a very busy start to next year and a very busy, like, first quarter, I would say, of next year. And look, the UFC are always busy, but November is a real let's get it done months of 2024, I'd say. And you know what? I'm looking forward to seeing it happen. And Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, the big PFL finale card, and I'll be here along the way, as well the rest of Sherdog, to cover every single bit of it. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.